Yeah, so my responsibilities vary, but I would say the central part of my job is to be farmer-oriented, farmer-focused. So anything I can do to educate farmers on crop insurance, on what's happening with Farm Bill, on what's happening with crop markets. So anything to provide education and provide unbiased, objective information to farmers on how they can better manage their risk ultimately is a very core part of what I do. Yeah, so I grew up on a cow-calf farm and broiler chicken farm in Floral, Arkansas. We also have a peach orchard and a small greenhouse nursery where we grew flowering plants and vegetable plants for people who like to garden and decorate their house. And first time I ever worked for money was, I think I was in the first grade. And I remember saving up for a portable DVD player that summer, and I remember I helped them produce a crop of chrysanthemums. And so I started working there whenever I was 6, learned the value of hard work, and did that until I went to college, even worked some while I was in college, went to Arkansas State. I just knew that I needed to get an education if I wanted to make a living and provide for a family, and so my family encouraged me to do that. And so I went to Arkansas State not knowing what exactly to do. I thought that I wanted to be a pharmacist or a doctor, but I learned very quickly that the lab sciences and I were not good friends. And that's why I'm an economist and not an agronomist. The lab sciences were not kind to me. A key moment for me was whenever I gave the freshman convocation. And I gave the speech, talked about the farm, talked about the family, talked about my upbringing. And then afterward, Dr. Burt Greenwalt, he came up to me afterward and he said, Hunter, I'm Burt Greenwalt and I'm a professor of agricultural economics here at Arkansas State University. Just wanted to come up and say I appreciated your speech and your charge to the freshman students and your story growing up on the farm. He said, and I wanted you to know we have an agribusiness degree and we have an ag finance degree. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. And so then I started studying under him, and he taught me a lot about agricultural economics, about economics in general, and how that plays out in agriculture. And he taught me a lot about agricultural policy. Agricultural policy, I remember taking that class and thinking, man, this is some of the hardest stuff I've ever done in my life. It was so much fun. It was good, hard work that was very rewarding to learn about and just to see, wow, this is real. Like people's lives are being impacted. And so then he talked me into going to Washington, D.C. to do some internships. So I interned for Rick Crawford, and I interned for a general farm organization called the National Council of Farmer Cooperatives. Didn't want to go to D.C. Dr. Greenwalt, he tried. I'm telling you, he put in a good try to get me to go. But after a lot of thought, a lot of prayer, I talked to my family about it. I decided, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. So I literally just showed up to D.C. with 3 bags on a plane. Learned a lot about what happens on the advocacy side and how these groups help farmers and how important that is. And then I went to Mississippi State. And that's where I learned about crop insurance and risk management, risk analysis, risk perceptions from producer's perspective from Dr. Keith Coble. And then after that, I went to Kansas State University under Dr. Jesse Tack. And so Jesse taught me a lot about modeling, the regressions, equations that we need to know, and how crop insurance can even influence decisions like how much fertilizer to use and how much pesticide to use and things of that nature. In the Farm Bill, there is authorized permanently a subsidy for the premium that a farmer will pay for crop insurance. So it makes crop insurance more affordable for producers, and so that's one piece of it that now I work in. I mean, I do risk analysis with crop insurance programs. I study how what optimal coverage levels are for crop insurance, what kind of programs farmers need to be enrolling in, whether it's a revenue program or a yield-only program, or if it's a county yield that needs to be the trigger for a payment, or if it's a farm level yield that's a trigger for the payment. So I go deep into that. Then on the Title I side, the commodity program side, so ARC PLC, agricultural risk coverage and price loss coverage, I've done some work with how those programs help to mitigate risk and how to minimize risk with those programs for price and production risk. From there, I finished my PhD, and really this is what I would consider my first job. A big part of what I do is adult education and farmer education. That could be through writing peer-reviewed journal articles, and they're not going to read that journal article, but I'm going to take the key findings And I'm going to present those findings in such a way that the farmer's going to care about it, and they're going to be able to use that information and take and say, no, this is actually really helpful. And they never had to learn about any of the equations that I did. The key finding can be, oh, well, instead of buying 65% revenue protection, you should buy 80% revenue protection, because on the average that will yield a better return, and it'll yield a better risk reduction. Recently, something that came out was the USDA crop production report, and that production report showed that the U.S. production was much lower than anticipated. And so we know supply and demand, supply falls, price goes up. And so we saw that price jump up for soybeans. And so I talked to a few farmers and said, hey, like if you haven't sold 2022 crop, you need to be selling your 2022 crop at this price. And something else that I produced is a technical report through the University of Arkansas Agricultural Economics and Agribusiness Department. In that technical report, I outlined how the Mississippi River being low impacted what happened on their farm. So the Mississippi River, as most of us are all aware, back in the fall was very low because it didn't rain. Some of those barges actually were being stuck in the mud, they were running aground, and ultimately you had the cost of that transportation going up. So if farmers didn't have grain storage, if they didn't already book that price ahead of time, they could have lost $1 per bushel just simply because of what was happening in the Mississippi River. And so we had a technical report. It's out there. It's on the website. Encourage people to go check it out. And in that we outlined kind of the economics of it and why grain transportation, why the Mississippi River, why barges are so important. I think my favorite part about it is just being with farmers. Our family farm actually just achieved Century Farm status a few years ago. And to be able to help farmers today get that status or maintain that status and that legacy of farming, that's critical and that's core to what I do. How we can manage what we have the best way to get the best return with whatever that return looks like. So working with computers would be great for this kind of work. Loving to be around people also makes great if you want to be an extension economist, and enjoying math because you will end up doing a lot of math. Whether or not you're actually writing the equations, that's one thing, but in your mind you're always thinking mathematically about how to approach life.